Sienna God, hello all. Oshisahiya, good evening. I want to thank you for watching. So this is day 12, part B of reading Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, an Inquiry into Values by Robert M. Pirsig. Motivation of the sort, once it catches hold, is a ferocious force. And in the gradeless, degreeless institution where one student would find himself, he wouldn't stop with R-O-T-E, engineering information. Physics and mathematics were going to come within his sphere of interest because he'd see he needed them. Metallurgy and electrical engineering would come up for attention, and in the process of intellectual maturing that these abstract studies gave him, he would be likely to branch out into other theoretical areas that weren't directly related to machines, but had become a part of a newer, larger goal. This larger goal wouldn't be the imitation of education in universities today, glossed over and concealed by grades and degrees that give the appearance of something happening when in fact almost nothing is going on. It would be the real thing. Such was Phaedrus' demonstrator, his unpopular argument, and he worked on it all quarter long, building it up and modifying it, arguing for it, defending it all quarter long. Papers would go back to the students with comments but no grades, although the grades were entered in a book. As I said before, at first, almost everyone was sort of nonplussed. The majority probably figured they were stuck with some idealist who thought removal of grades would make them happier and thus work harder, when it was obvious that without grades, everyone would just loaf. Many of the students with A records in previous quarters were contemptuous and angry at first, but because of their acquired self-discipline, went ahead and did the work anyway. The B students and high C students missed some of the early assignments or turned in sloppy work. Many of the low C and D students didn't even show up for class. At this time, another teacher asked him what he was going to do about this lack of response. Outweight them, he said. His lack of harshness puzzled the students at first, then made them suspicious. Some began to ask sarcastic questions. These received soft answers, and the lectures and the speeches proceeded as usual, except with no grades. Then a hoped-for phenomenon began. During the third or fourth week, some of the A students began to get nervous and started to turn in superb work and hang around after class with questions that fished for some indication as to how they were doing. The B and high C students began to notice this and work a little and bring up the quality of their papers to do a more usual level. The low C, D, and future Fs began to show up for class just to see what was going on. After a mid-quarter, an even more hoped-for phenomenon took place. The A-rated students lost their nervousness and became active participants in everything that went on with a friendliness that was uncommon in a grade-getting class. At this point, the B and C students were in a panic and turned in stuff that looked as though they'd spent hours of painstaking work on it. The D's and F's turned in satisfactory assignments. In the final weeks of the quarter, a time when normally everyone knows what his grade will be and just sits back half asleep, Phaedrus was getting a kind of class participation that made other teachers take notice. The B's and C's had joined the A's in friendly free-for-all discussion that made the class seem like a successful party. Only the D's and F's sat frozen in their chairs in a complete internal panic. The phenomenon of relaxation and friendliness was explained later by a couple of students who told them, "A lot of us got together outside of class to try to figure out how to beat the system. Everyone decided the best way was just to figure you were going to fail and then go ahead and do what you could anyway. Then you start to relax. Otherwise, you go out of your mind." I bet. The students added that once you got used to it, it wasn't so bad. You were more interested in the subject matter, but repeated that it wasn't easy to get used to. At the end of the quarter, the students were asked to write an essay evaluating the system. None of them knew at the time of writing what his or her grade would be. 54% opposed it, 37% favored it, 9% were neutral. On the basis of one man, one vote, the system was very unpopular. The majority of students definitely wanted their grades as they went along, but when Phaedrus broke down the returns according to grades that were in his book, and the grades were not out of line with grades predicted by previous classes, the entrance evaluations, another story was told. The A students were 2-1 in favor of the system. The B and C students were evenly divided, and the D's and F's were unanimously opposed. This surprising result supported a hunch he had for a long time, that the brighter, more serious students were at least desirous of grades, possibly because they were more interested in the subject matter of the course. Whereas the dull or lazy students were the most desirous of grades, possibly because grades told them if they were getting by. As DeWeese said, from here straight south, you can go 75 miles through nothing but forest, snow, without ever encountering a road. Although there are roads to the east and the west, I've arranged it so that if things work out badly at the end of the second day, we'll be near a road that can get us back fast. Chris doesn't know about this, and it would hurt his YMCA camp sense of adventure to tell him, but after enough trips into the high country, the YMCA desire of the adventure diminishes, and the more substantial benefits of cutting down risks appear. This country can be dangerous. You can take one bad step in a million, sprain an ankle, and then you find out how far from civilization you really are. Yeah. This is apparently a seldom entered canyon this far up. After another hour of hiking, we see that the trail is about gone. Phaedrus. Oh, okay, he's back at the classroom. Phaedrus thought withholding grades was good according to his notes, but he didn't give it scientific value. In a true experiment, you keep constant every cause you can think of except one, and then see what the effects are of varying that one cause. In the classroom, you can never do this. Student knowledge, student attitude, teacher attitude, all change from all kinds of causes which are uncontrollable and mostly unknowable. Also, the observer in this case is himself one of the causes, and can never judge his effects without altering his effects. So he didn't attempt to draw any hard conclusions from all of this. He just went ahead and did what he liked. The movement from this to his inquiry into quality. I haven't looked up if ENQUIRY and INQUIRY are the same, just spelled different depending upon which version you want to use, maybe where you are in the world, I don't know, or if it actually means two very different things. I'm not really sure. Because this one is ENQUIRY. So it says the movement from this to his inquiry into quality took place because of a sinister aspect of grading that the withholding of grades exposed. Grades really cover up failure to teach. A bad instructor can go through an entire quarter leaving absolutely nothing memorable in the minds of his class, curve out the scores on an irrelevant test, and leave the impression that some have learned and some have not. But if the grades are removed, the class is forced to wonder each day what it's really learning. The questions, what's being taught, what's the goal, how do the lectures and assignments accomplish the goal, become ominous. The removal of grades exposes a huge and frightening vacuum. What was Phaedrus trying to do anyway? This question became more and more imperative as he went on. The answer that had seemed right when he started now made less and less sense. He had wanted his students to become creative by deciding for themselves what was good writing instead of asking him all the time. Yeah, right? The real purpose of withholding the grades was to force them to look within themselves, the only place they could ever get a really right answer. That's another thing too, is like the fear of getting the bad grade can really cripple creativity. Like, for real. Talk about, like, what do they call the mental blocks? But now, or writer's block, right? But I mean mental block, because that really covers everything. It doesn't matter if you're writing or not. But now this made no sense. If they already knew what was good and bad, there was no reason for them to take the course in the first place. The fact that they were there as students presumed they did not know what was good or bad. That was his job as an instructor, to tell them what was good or bad. The whole idea of individual creativity and expression in the classroom was really basically opposed to the whole idea of the university. For many of the students, the withholding created a Kafkaesque situation in which they saw they were to be punished for failure to do something, but no one would tell them what they were supposed to do. They looked within themselves and saw nothing, and looked at Phaedrus and saw nothing, and just sat there hopeless, not knowing what to do. The vacuum was deadly. One girl suffered a nervous breakdown. Good Lord. You cannot withhold grades and sit there and create a goalless vacuum. You have to provide some goal for a class to work toward that will fill that vacuum. This he wasn't doing. He couldn't. He could think of no possible way he could tell them what they should work toward without falling back into the trap of authoritarian, didactic teaching. But how can you put on the blackboard the mysterious internal goal of each creative person? The next quarter, he dropped the whole idea and went back to the regular grading, discouraged, confused, feeling he was right, but somehow it had come out all wrong. When spontaneity and individuality and really good original stuff occurred in a classroom, it was in spite of the instruction, not because of it. This seemed to make sense. He was ready to resign. Teaching dull conformity to hateful students wasn't what he wanted to do. He had heard the Reed College in Oregon withheld grades until graduation, and during the summer vacation, he went there but was told the faculty was divided on the value of withholding grades and that no one was tremendously happy about the system. During the rest of the summer, his mood became depressed and lazy. He and his wife camped a lot in those mountains. She asked why he was so silent all the time, but he couldn't say why. He was just stopped, waiting for that missing seed crystal of thought that would suddenly solidify everything. Chapter 17. It's looking bad for Chris. For a while, he was way ahead of me, and now he sits under a tree and rests. He doesn't look at me, and that's how I know it's bad. I sit down next to him, and his expression is distant. His face is flushed, and I can see he's exhausted. We sit and listen to the wind through the pines. I know eventually he'll get up and keep going, but he doesn't know this, and is afraid to face the possibility that his fear creates, that he may not be able to climb the mountain at all. I remember something Phaedrus had written about these mountains and tell it to Chris now. Years ago, I tell him, your mother and I were at the timberline, not so far from here, and we camped near a lake with a marsh on one side. He doesn't look up, but he's listening. At about dawn, we heard falling rocks, and we thought it must be an animal, except the animals don't usually clatter around. Then I heard a squishing sound in the marsh, and we were really wide awake. I got out of the sleeping bag slowly and got our revolver from my jacket and crouched by a tree. Now Chris's attention is distracted from his own problems. There was another squish, I say. I thought it could be horses with dudes packing in, but not at this hour. Another squish and a loud galoomph. That's no horse, and a galoomph, and a galoomph. And there in the dim gray light, a dawn coming straight for me through the muck of the marsh was the biggest bull moose I ever saw. Horns as wide as a man is tall. Next to the grizzly, the most dangerous animal in the mountains. Some say the worst. Yeah, it is. Chris's eyes are bright again. Galoomph. I cocked the hammer on the revolver, thinking a .38 special wasn't very much for a moose. Galoomph. He didn't see me. Galoomph. I couldn't get out of his way. Your mother was in the sleeping bag right in his path. Galoomph. What a giant. Galoomph. He's 10 yards away. Galoomph. I stand up and take him. Galoomph. 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 He stops 3 yards away and sees me. The gun sights lie right between his eyes. We're motionless. I reach around in my pack and get out some cheese. Then what happened? Chris asks. Wait until I cut off some of this cheese. I remove my hunting knife and hold the cheese wrapper so that my fingers don't get on it. I slice out a 1/4-inch chunk and hold it out for him. He takes it. Then what happened? I watch until he takes his first bite. That bull moose looked at me for what must have been 5 seconds. Then he looked down at your mother. Then he looked at me again and at the revolver, which was practically lying on the top of his big round nose. And then he smiled and slowly walked away. Oh, Chris says. He looks disappointed. Normally, when they're confronted like that, they'll charge, I say. But he just thought it was a nice morning, and we were there first, so why make trouble? And that's why he smiled. Can they smile? No, but it looked away. Oh, no, but it looked that way. He says, no, but it looked that way. Yeah, I bet it did. So our eyes kind of like, I don't know. Maybe it's like a connection that you get, like when you're in that heightened state and you're like freaking out almost, but not, and you're trying to be cool about it. Maybe there is something like, hey, all right, you know, and you could swear that you saw a smile go along with those thoughts. Anyway, or that feeling that you get. I put the cheese away and later on that day, we were jumping from boulder to boulder down the side of a slope. I was about to land on a great big brown boulder when all of a sudden the great big brown boulder jumped in the air and ran off into the woods. It was the same moose. I think that moose must have been pretty sick of us that day. I helped Chris get to his feet. You are going a little too fast, I say. Now the mountainside becoming steep and we have to go slowly. If you go too fast, you get winded, and when you get winded, you get dizzy, and that weakens your spirit, and you think, I can't do it. So go slow for a while. I'll stay behind you, he says. Okay. We walk now away from the stream. We were following up the canyon side and the shallowest angle I could find. Mountains should be climbed with as little effort as possible and without desire. The reality of your own nature should determine the speed. If you become restless, speed up. If you become winded, slow down. You climb the mountain in an equilibrium between restlessness and exhaustion. Then when you're no longer thinking ahead, each footstep isn't just a means to an end, but a unique event in itself. This leaf has jagged edges. This rock looks loose. From this place, the snow is less visible, even though closer. These are the things you should notice anyway. To live only for some future goal is shallow. It's the sides of the mountain which sustain life, not the top. Here's where things grow. But of course, without the top, you can't have any sides. It's the top that defines the sides. So on we go. We have a long way, no hurry, just one step after the next with a little Chautauqua for entertainment. Mental reflection is so much more interesting than TV. It's a shame more people don't switch over to it. They probably think what they hear is unimportant, but it never is. Yeah. There's a large fragment concerning Phaedrus' first, I was thinking people aren't comfortable with themselves, right? Like you put them in a situation where they have no cell service. They have like no board games, no source of entertainment that they are used to. And what are they going to do? Well, we kind of saw it, didn't we? With the vacation that we were forced to take that we did not sign up for. And a lot of people had a huge elephant in the room that they had to confront, whether that was a spouse, whether it was themselves, their own minds, whatever it was, or their children. Being an introvert, I was completely fine in being at home. I mean, I celebrated it. My hubster, introvert. Our daughter, not so much. She wanted to be able to go and do whatever it was that she wanted to do. My son, I can tell you, he would totally be fine if we couldn't walk around if we couldn't go to stores and whatnot. He'd be completely cool with that. We would walk in the neighborhood, whatever it was, right? Or go to some park or something like that. He'd be completely okay. But you literally have to be okay with yourself first. I mean, because yourself will just be talking a mile a minute and telling you all the negativity that it can see or conjure up or whatever, and you have to stay focused, right? Front sight focused, right, on what it is that you want and create structure and all those things, right? Excuse me. There's also stuff all around you to do, but you just have to motivate yourself to go do those things, start hobbies and all those things. Anyway, there's a large fragment concerning Phaedrus' first class after he gave the assignment on what is quality in thought and statement. The atmosphere was explosive. Almost everyone seemed as frustrated and as angered as he had been by the question. How are we supposed to know what quality is? They said. You're supposed to tell us. That's crazy, right? Then he told them he couldn't figure it out either and really wanted to know. He had assigned it in hope that somebody would come up with a good answer. That ignited it. A roar of indignation shook the room. Before the commotion had settled down, another teacher had stuck his head in the door to see what the trouble was. It's all right, Phaedrus said. We just accidentally stumbled over a genuine question, and the shock is hard to recover from. Some students looked curious at this, and the noise simmered down. He then used the occasion for a short return to his theme of corruption and decay in the Church of Reason. It was a measure of this corruption, he said, that the students should be outraged by someone trying to use them to speak the truth. You are supposed to fake this search for the truth, to imitate it. To actually search for it was a damned imposition. Don't go till we meet again. Love you, mean it.